evolved so quickly, we had to really make an effort in the committee to make sure that the text would become obsolete once there's a new AI system coming out. For example, during the negotiations, ChatGPT became very popular and was a bit of a revolution in the AI world. And so we needed to make sure that there wouldn't be another system coming out like this that would make the convention obsolete. So what we did is we tried to keep the text as technology neutral as possible so that it won't become obsolete, and that hopefully in 20 years we can still use the convention as it is, or maybe have an additional protocol or something like this. Some really quick points about the scope of the convention. The convention applies to both the public and the private sectors, and there's limited exemptions when it comes to national security and research and development. And of course, as stated in the Statute of the Council of Europe, it does not deal with questions of national defense, and they fall outside of the scope of the convention. And so another thing that the convention does is that it actually, you'll see if you read the text, there's a whole chapter which is a list of fundamental principles that need to be upheld when using or developing an AI system. And those principles are human dignity and individual autonomy, equality and non-discrimination, protection of privacy and personal data protection, but also transparency and oversight, accountability and responsibility, and of course, as I was saying, safe innovation and reliability. So again, those are very clearly written in the convention, and they need to be taken into account by states developing AI systems. Another thing that the convention does is that it sets out remedies and procedural rights and safeguards when AI is used. For example, there's an obligation to document some information about the use of an AI system and to make it available to people so that if needed, people have enough information that they can contest a decision that has been made by an AI system, for example. But for example, they also need to know to be able to contest this decision that the decision was actually taken by an AI system. So it's mandatory to actually provide a notice that someone is interacting with an AI system rather than with a human, so that they can say, well, but I don't agree with this, and I would like a human, for example, to review this decision that has been made about me. And then my last point in this presentation, before I give the floor to my colleague Vadim, is that Article 16 of the Convention sets out requirements for risk and impact management, which is something that is really important. And when we talk about AI system, and those are risk and impact management for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. So this is a really novel piece that is set out in the convention, and it's something that we're working on and that Vadim will talk to you. But basically, in the convention, there is a broad obligation, if you will, to carry out a risk and impact assessment, and that, for example, this, again, general terms, like the impact assessment should be carried out iteratively throughout the life cycle of the AI system. But then again, I'll give the floor to my colleague Vadim now, and he'll explain a little bit more about this risk and impact management that we're developing now. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank
you. Luis, thank you so much for this very fruitful insight about the convention itself, and now we are ready to listen to Vadim for more information about that. I remember our discussions in Strasbourg where Vadim was saying that human rights is a crucial issue for AI systems, but it should be advanced before the AI system, otherwise it's going to be too late. So what does it mean exactly, Vadim? We are ready to listen it from your side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. So, what we mean by what you just quoted is this idea that basically human rights law is a liability. So, first things happen, and then after after things have happened, there is some kind of remedy mechanism or some kind of access to justice, and then basically it's up to the authorities and the courts to figure out if something was done wrongly. Now, when you look at how AI works, AI of course is developed by people who develop AI. It's mostly private sector, and then of course it's extremely scalable. So it means that by deploying a system and using it, if something is wrong about the system itself, the number of violations potentially that you can get is a lot more than if it was just humans. So if you look at the AI regulation space, you will see that a lot of ideas about AI governance are all ideas of ex ante regulation, so not ex post, like liability, which is also included, and Louise, mentioned that you need to have better remedies, better access to remedies. But another important piece of the puzzle for AI governance is ex ante. By ex ante, what we mean essentially is that at the stage of the design and development of AI systems, all of these considerations regarding human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, they have to be taken into account in advance. That's basically the idea. Now, huge area, so we have Chapter 5 in the Convention, which is the same, you could say, idea as the huge area. Basically, the states are required to consider measures that would make those who make AI, like deployers, producers, the whole life cycle, think about risk and impact assessment of AI systems. So I'll share my presentation. I'll try to be relatively brief, and then this one. I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can see that.
That's perfect. So again, we'll try to maybe be very brief. Just like the convention itself, this ad hoc committee on AI, carried out some groundwork on this. So the basic skeleton, you could say, and lots of the materials about how Hudaria should be, the preliminary research was done by the CAHI. Now, what happened when the Committee on AI was established, so the same committee that negotiated the convention, at the third plenary meeting, the decision was taken about how to proceed. And essentially, on risk management, the committee agreed that we will have a provision in the convention itself. It became Article 16, or Chapter 5 in the convention, that talks about risk management in general terms. And then we will have two more layers of guidance. So the Hudaria was separated from the convention. So there is some link, but it's not really a legal link or a binding link. And so on the one hand, we have a standalone, non-legally binding methodology, which is now already adopted. And then in 2025, next year, the committee will work on what we call a model, the Hudaria model, which will contain all these useful tools for the teams that are using, deploying, and designing AI to help them incorporate the considerations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law into the life cycle of AI. That's the approach. Just like the convention, again, the idea was to try to make this, work in a multi-stakeholder environment. So again, with the participation of experts, we had the internal consultations at the Council of Europe, because Council of Europe has expertise in all the different topics in relation to this. And then, of course, So the future system for testing, and Hudaria was used to test and assess risks. And then, of course, and I will speak about it in a minute, given how important technical standards are in this area, we also had a special format in which we engaged with standard setting organizations. So what is Hudaria in the end? So first of all, it's a guidance, and it's a guidance that is targeting, it's kind of structuring, it's explaining how to do risk and impact assessments for AI when it comes to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Now, we have to, when we think about like what exists in this area, the answer is very likely you will know that you have some technical frameworks, ISO, IEC, some work being carried out right now, Sensenelec, IEEE, and then you also have, when it comes to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, you have some human rights and democracy standards. They are either domestic or international. But then again, in terms of expertise, human rights standards is mostly lawyers, right? People who have legal education. And then for technical frameworks, it's mostly engineers. These people do not necessarily speak the same language. They have not been dealing with the same type of problems so far. And so in the context of AI, these people have to work together to make AI safe. And then again, I'll try to be kind of relatively light, but the idea is we basically take known, really well-known variables of risk management, scale, scope, probability, reversibility, and then we just try to make them work. We provide some guidance in view of what we call socio-technical complexity of AI. And socio-technical complexity basically means that it's not enough to know what AI system is or what it does. It's really important to know the context in which AI system will operate. Okay, so that's the description of how we proceed. So, like a couple of weeks ago, the CAI adopted the methodology, which kind of describes, generally speaking, concepts, processes, and elements. It's about 25 pages long. And then next year, we will aim to adopt supporting materials and resources. So it's going to be more than 25 pages, way more. I'll very briefly speak about the content of Hudaria. It's essentially 4 steps, and it's really important. So they are sequential. It's also possible not to think about these things sequentially, so not in this order. But I would say that the first step, what we call context-based risk analysis, or COBRA, it really has to be something that is done first, okay? So COBRA is an attempt to identify the risks and to look for risks, or what we call risk factors. So the things that kind of trigger or should trigger more attention from the AI teams in relation to 3 areas or 3 types of information. It's an information about application context, so where the system is used or is going to be used. Second, about the system's design and development, so it's more of a technical information, but also not only, because this is where all these problems in relation to discrimination, bias, and some others also come up. And then the third element, or the third type of information, is the actual modalities of deployment. So it really matters how you deploy a system in the application context. Just changing the modalities of deployment a little bit may actually give you a completely different legal risk. So COBRA, if you, comparatively speaking, it's most of the information comes from Cobra. This is the crucial stage where you really have an understanding of risks. And then one of the ideas in Cobra is that for systems that pose no risk or very marginal risk, you can stop right there. You don't have to go any further. And then, of course, for systems that look like they're presenting serious risk, you would probably have to consider going further and going through other steps. The second step is stakeholder engagement, which is also a huge novelty. Stakeholder engagement is required because, as you all know, the audience is kind of interested in human rights. Human rights analysis at core is not an objective analysis. It's a combination of objective and subjective analysis because humans live human rights violations, and in order to understand the harm that they suffered, it's really important to take the point of view of the victim, and different people may live the same thing differently. So stakeholder engagement is really important. It fills the gap. You can almost say philosophically, you have point of view limitations in the AI team. People who design AI may have trouble realizing what different things about the system mean for the people who will be affected by the system. And so, in order to fill the gaps in this information space, you want to engage with people that will be affected by the system to try to understand how they, in what ways they will be affected and how they will feel about it. And so this is kind of a novel element. And then the third element is the actual risk and impact assessment, which again was kind of conceived or thought of as a really in-depth analysis for systems that do pose risks to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And then, of course, it's nothing new. Once you have identified risks or impacts, then you have to mitigate them. So this is stage 4. I hope it was not too long. I will see, I just stop here, and then if you have questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Vadim, thank you so much. It was very fruitful and inspiring us a lot. And so we see that it's not coincidence that, let's say, new baby of the Council of Europe, it's for the Framework Convention, we can call it like that, that when the Framework Convention is emphasizing on the AI, it's not coincidence that there's a mention, special emphasis on the 3 main pillars of the Council of Europe, as you said, the human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. So I think this is how Council of Europe position itself when it comes to AI discussions and the new AI era in the world, let's say. And I think your message was very clear. We should think about more and respect more to human rights while designing and establishing our AI mechanisms at the national level, at least, for human dignity and for the other important values, let's say, of the human rights. I think it was a very important point. So thank you so much. I just want to look at the audience, whether there's someone who wants to ask a question, or because I know that you have also limited time. So let's make a break right now. So 10 minutes break for us, and I would like to once again thank you, both Louise and Vadim. We wish to host you one day in Ankara at our university in person. Glad to have you. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Efendim şöyle bir çay kahve arası verelim ama 10 dakika çünkü çok kıymetli 2 misafirimiz daha var. UNDP, Birleşmiş Milletler Kalkınma Programı'ndan Cemil'i ve Türkmen hocamızı dinliyor olacağız. Bir 10 dakika çay kahve alalım ve tekrar salona dönelim lütfen. Teşekkür ederim.